Welcome to today's Explainer. We're unpacking one of the absolute most fascinating and, frankly, completely misunderstood dynamics in relationship psychology today. It's called the good man paradox. We're going to explore exactly why doing everything quote-unquote right sometimes just goes so terribly wrong.
We literally hear it all the time, right? I just want a good man. A guy who's caring, patient, always listens, and never ever argues. And hey, on the surface, that sounds completely reasonable, but there's a massive trap here. Men often hear these words and they totally misinterpret them. They kind of assume being a good man means saying yes to absolutely everything, tolerating all behaviors, and just avoiding conflict at all costs to keep their partner happy. Even if that means, say, agreeing to a dinner spot they absolutely hate just to avoid a heavy sigh.
So that really brings us to the central paradox here. If a partner gets exactly what they asked for, why do they so often end up losing respect for this exact type of man? Well, to answer that, we're going to use a myth versus reality framework to really decode this whole phenomenon. It's definitely not that women hate good men. Not at all. It's just that there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what goodness actually looks like in practice. Okay, let's just dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. We're going to define the good man paradox, look at why agreeable isn't always good, cover emotional stability over chasing, the power to walk away, enforcing your boundaries, and finally, love is not self-sacrifice, which is really the ultimate climax of our discussion today. Let's get started.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the good man paradox, doing everything right.
Which leads us directly into Section 2, agreeable is not good.
So the big overarching theme here is that being a good man is so often and completely incorrectly equated with weakness. Sometimes our emotions just take over and completely cloud our logical judgment, right? Because of this, a partner actually doesn't need a man who agrees with every single emotional decision they make. What they really need is someone who can ground them. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. Let's look at the agreeable man. He says yes to everything, sure, but he does it out of fear. Fear of losing approval, fear of sparking an argument, or fear his partner might just leave. Now contrast that with the respected man. He isn't afraid to say no because his answers are rooted in wisdom and strong convictions. Ironically enough, a calm no often earns far, far more respect than 100 fearful yeses.
Now, we have to make a super careful distinction here. We are absolutely not talking about a controlling man who's just seeking dominance. A controlling man tells someone what to do because he just wants power. But a confident man, he says no because he's logically thinking about the real-world consequences of an action, even if it's super difficult for his partner to hear in that highly emotional moment. He's leading with wisdom, not fear.
Moving on to Section 3, emotional stability over chasing.
There is this incredibly widespread, totally false assumption out there that you just have to instantly fix your partner's every single mood swing to prove how much you care. But panicking when they panic, begging them to calm down, and basically just abandoning your own personal peace, that isn't love. That is emotional dependence. Constantly chasing a partner's shifting moods actually backfires big time. True emotional stability means remaining calm and knowing exactly where they end and you begin. At the end of the day, a partner wants to know that your emotional state isn't just entirely dictated by theirs.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, it sounds a bit like this. When you're ready to talk respectfully, we'll talk. Until then, take the time you need. This script is honestly brilliant. It perfectly demonstrates how someone can fiercely protect their own peace and their boundaries without coming off as angry, cold, or uncaring. It's all about responding with maturity instead of just reacting with wild emotion.
Next up is Section 4, the power to walk away.
Now, this is perhaps the single most uncomfortable truth of this entire dynamic. To be truly respected, you absolutely must be willing to walk away from disrespect. Think about it. A man who stays no matter how many boundaries are crossed is basically, albeit unintentionally, teaching his partner that his standards just don't matter. He's staying because he's terrified of being alone. On the flip side, a man who stays purely by choice because he knows his value and requires basic respect, well, he commands a completely different level of commitment. Because he knows he has the sheer strength to leave if he's dishonored, his presence becomes incredibly valuable.
So how do you actually go about building that kind of strength? It all comes down to an abundant mindset. When your life is just packed with purpose, clear goals, rock-solid friendships, family connections, and deep self-respect, your entire emotional world doesn't rely solely on your romantic partner. And the reality is, a partner actually feels much, much safer with someone who has a rich, fulfilling life completely outside of the relationship. You're just far less likely to tolerate constant disrespect because, hey, losing one relationship Doesn't mean losing your entire identity.
All right, on to Section 5, enforcing your boundaries.
Pretty much everyone says they have standards, right? But what actually happens when those standards are tested? See, setting a boundary is just using words. It's making promises about what you won't tolerate. But enforcing a boundary, that means applying consistent consequences when you're inevitably tested. Because a boundary without a consequence is really just a suggestion. For example, if you set a boundary that your time is valuable, but then you repeatedly let a last-minute canceled date slide without any real consequence, well, you're just training your partner not to take you seriously. Actions are always going to speak louder than promises.
So the crucial point is this rather harsh reality. Respect disappears one ignored boundary at a time. It rarely just vanishes overnight, right? It erodes slowly, piece by piece, when bad behavior goes unchecked just because you're making excuses or maybe you're afraid of them getting angry. Protecting that respect right from the very beginning through consistent consequences is absolutely vital.
And finally, we've reached Section 6, love is not self-sacrifice.
This brings us to the ultimate misunderstanding in relationships. We are all taught this highly romanticized myth that true love means making someone your entire world. But actually, abandoning your purpose and losing your own identity just causes your partner to feel totally suffocated rather than secure. The healthiest approach by far is to invite them into your world, all while maintaining your own peace and your own goals. A truly healthy relationship requires two complete people, not one complete person and one who's completely lost their identity trying to please the other.
To quickly summarize all of this, we really have to stop confusing goodness with weakness. The good man myth tells you to be agreeable, try to fix every little emotion, rely heavily on self-sacrifice, and just state your boundaries with words. But the respected reality? That's a partner who has strong convictions, remains emotionally stable, maintains their own independent identity, and absolutely ensures their actions always match their words.
Now, there is a very crucial caveat here. This explainer is absolutely not an endorsement of toxic, cruel, or controlling behavior. Not at all. You should absolutely keep being kind, keep being generous, and care deeply about your partner. Always lead with respect. The message here isn't to suddenly become cold or emotionally unavailable. It's simply a clear call for self-respect.
So, I want to leave you with a final thought today. Have you ever experienced this paradox in your own relationship? Have you ever thought you were doing literally everything right, only to feel the respect just slipping away? Understanding these hidden truths really can completely change how you approach love and connection. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you some powerful new insights to think about.